Hi, I'm Ryan with Box on the Rocks, and this is our seasoned barman, Eddie.
That means old, right?
Eddie, what is the first thing you think about when you think of March?
March Madness.
Airball.
Spring training.
Strike two.
St. Patrick's Day.
On the nose. All right, we are talking about our March kit, which is the Luck of the Irish coffee kit. It has 3 cocktails in it: the Irish coffee, the Nutty Irishman, and the Sober Irishman, which is a non-alcoholic cocktail.
For the day after
That's right.
St. Patrick's Day.
Just in case you imbibe too much. All right, so let's go through the box and see what we've got in there.
What you got in the box there, Ryan?
What's in the box?
What's in the box?
All right, so we've got Foynes Coffee Co. Irish Cream Coffee. We've got Premium Hot Cocoa Mix by Ghirardelli.
Nice.
We've got our Irish coffee glass.
Very traditional Irish coffee glass.
We've got some shelf-stable whipping cream. And while this doesn't have to be refrigerated, we do recommend that you throw it in the cooler as soon as you get your box.
As soon as you get your box, put that in the fridge.
And then once you cut it open, then you will have to refrigerate it. We've got some Monin Amaretto syrup. There's 2 bottles of that in there. We've got a handful of sugar cubes here. And then we've got some green napkins because March. And then we've got a bar spoon to aid in your cocktail making.
Nice.
Okay, so the Irish coffee. Can you tell us a little bit of the history behind that cocktail?
I tell you what, this is one of my favorite cocktails. Not only because it tastes delicious, but because it has a long history. It starts off in 1942. The inventor of the Irish coffee was not a bartender. It was actually Joe Sheridan, who was a chef. He was a chef at the Foynes Airport in Ireland. So if you know anything about the Foynes Airport, it was basically a very transient airport, and sometimes there were long layovers.
And what do people like to do when they're laid over in an airport?
Well, Ireland's cold, and Ireland, you like to drink.
They like to drink.
So we put those 2 things together, and out comes the Irish coffee. And one of the passengers was so enamored with the drink, he actually went to Joe Sheridan and he said, "Hey, what is this, Brazilian coffee?" And Joe Sheridan said, "No, it's Irish coffee." So if you're in the United States, you think of the Buena Vista in San Francisco, California. And there is a tie between the two. A gentleman by the name of Stanton Delaplane in 1952 was going through the airport, and he came upon this drink, and he became totally enamored with it. So he told his buddy, a bartender at the Buena Vista by the name of Jack Kepler, "You gotta get this drink inside your bar." So Jack Kepler started making Irish coffees. The problem is that he couldn't get the heavy cream to float. Now we're going to show you the secret to getting heavy cream to float later on. But because he had such a difficult time with it, he actually called on Joe Sheridan, invited him to San Francisco, offered him a position at the Buena Vista. And San Francisco is where the inventor of the Irish coffee, George Sheridan, wound up retiring.
Interesting. So what is the spirit that we're using for the Irish coffee?
My favorite Irish whiskey, Jameson's Irish Whiskey.
Can't have Irish coffee without Jameson.
No, absolutely not. You know, Irish whiskey is different than other whiskeys in that it is made in a very, very large copper pot still. And because of that, it offers a lighter distillate in the end, something really perfect to accompany coffee.
And then if you don't have Irish whiskey, can you make an Irish coffee with something else?
You can make a coffee with rum, bourbon, Tennessee whiskey, but if it's going to be an Irish coffee, it has to be Irish whiskey.
Good tip. So Eddie, you mentioned before a secret about making the Irish coffee. What is that secret?
Okay, well, the secret to a great Irish coffee is very, very hot coffee and very, very cold, heavy whipping cream. Stay away from the aerosol and the ready whip that you kind of float over the top, the same type that you use for pumpkin pie. Instead, the heavy whipping cream that's very cold and shaken very well. It allows the air to go inside the cream, and it'll be lighter than the coffee, and it'll sit right on top beautifully.
All right, let's make some cocktails.
Now, Ryan, if you ever go to San Francisco, the first thing you need to do is go to the Buena Vista and get an original Irish coffee. You can catch the cable cars right by there.
Where am I going to end up?
Well, if you go to the Hyde Street line, it's going to take you all the way up to Union Square. A fantastic ride.
Sounds like fun.
It is.
Different variations of coffee cocktails predate the now classic Irish coffee by about 100 years. In fact, from the mid-19th century, coffee cocktails were served in Viennese coffee houses and served in glass and topped with whipped cream. Around 1900, the coffee cocktail menu in the Viennese cafes also included a handful of variations on the classic Irish coffee theme. To get the cream to float on the top, it is carefully poured over the back of the bar spoon, held just above the surface of the coffee, and gradually raised a little until the entire layer is floated. The best way to float a layer of cream is to open the shelf-stable whipping cream to allow it to aerate, and then reclose the lid and shake it vigorously 8 to 10 times. Then rest your bar spoon upside down against the inside of the glass just above the coffee, and then gradually pour the whipping cream over the bowl of the spoon.
Ryan, have you ever been to the Buena Vista?
No, I haven't.
I tell you what, one of the things that is so interesting, and what interested me when I first went there, it's really not a bar. It's more than anything. It's a coffee shop. It's a little diner.
Interesting. Okay, so the second cocktail in the Luck of the Irish coffee kit is the Nutty Irishman. So this is basically a cold brew version of the Irish whiskey with some amaretto flavoring. Is that correct?
Well, you know, Ryan, we're in Phoenix, so it's winter about 2 months a year. The rest of the time we have warm and then sometimes really hot weather. So what we wanted to do is offer a hot weather solution. If you don't have cold brew on hand, brew a pot of coffee, stick it in your refrigerator, let it get cold, and use that. It's delicious and refreshing.
Okay, so we don't have to use cold brew coffee. We can use hot coffee that we've let cool off in the refrigerator and we'll be just fine?
That's right. It doesn't have to be cold brew. It can be brewed coffee that's been stuck in the refrigerator and allowed to cool.
Thank you. Hey Eddie, you want to hear a joke?
Okay.
How do you know if an Irishman is having a good time?
Oh man, I'm worried about this, but go ahead, tell me how.
He's doubling over with laughter.
You're a dad, aren't you?
For the Sober Irishman, we're going to use 3 ounces of cold brew Irish cream coffee, a ½ ounce of Monin amaretto syrup, and 2 ounces of the shelf-stable whipping cream. Brew the coffee and let it cool in a refrigerator for about an hour. Add the first 2 ingredients into a Collins glass, and then add crushed ice, leaving a 1/4 inch for the whipping cream. Rest the bar spoon on top of the crushed ice and pour the whipping cream over the bowl of the spoon. Then garnish with cocoa powder sprinkle. Okay, so the third cocktail in this kit is the Sober Irishman. So it's essentially the Nutty Irishman without the liquor, is that correct?
Absolutely. We always want to be able to offer a non-alcoholic experience in every single box on the rocks. So we just emulated the Nutty Irishman. We took out the whiskey, but we allowed the same beautiful amaretto syrup to stay in. But at the same time, if you like your coffee black, if you don't like any kind of sweetener in it, you can leave that out, put in the cold coffee, and it'll be every bit as delicious for you.
And this gives the option for the designated drivers to have a cocktail.
Absolutely, but for me, that's the Uber guy. So.
Hey Eddie, I made you a cocktail.
All right, what do we got?
All right, this is the Nutty Irishman made for you.
Nice.
And the Irish coffee. Sláinte.
Cheers.
Foam gets in my mustache.
This is delicious.
All right, thanks for joining us today for the March Luck of the Irish Coffee Cocktail Kit. If you guys liked your cocktails, let us know in the comments below. Eddie, can you give us a preview of the cocktails for next month?
Next month we have a delicious box for you. It's going to feature the #1 cocktail and the #1 flavor profile in the United States.
That's exciting. Until then, remember to drink outside the box.